Living green or sustainably is about more than saving on your electric bill and doing your part to protect natural resources. It is about a safer and healthier life for you and your family without sacrificing style, quality, or budget. This is a movement to provide all of us with clean air to breathe and water to drink, safe, healthy food to eat and places to live, and energy to run the places where we live, learn, play, and work. The Everyday Green Home Podcast helps you get the value of green for you, your family, and your community. Whether it's green homes, green living, or the people who make it happen, join me, Marla Esser-Close, to learn how green and sustainability practices and products work for you and our world. Hello, Tony. I got a fun topic today.
Oh, what are we talking about today, Marla?
Toilet paper.
TP, my initials.
TP! Who thinks about toilet paper, right?
Well, high school students when they're getting ready to TP trees, college students when they're going, uh-oh, I'm out. And that's about it.
Oh, no. Come on. We just came out of a pandemic.
True.
And what was the first thing everybody stocked up on?
And it's funny because I generally can tell the health of the supply chain when I make my weekly grocery store runs, because even if I don't need it or not, I just walk up and down the aisle just to see how well stocked it is.
See what's what?
Yeah, exactly. That is true.
So why do you think there was such a big run on toilet paper?
You know why? Because in my mind, it's one of those necessities that we need in society today. At least that's what we have been trained to do in our culture, in our economy, in our lives, which are totally different than other parts of this world.
Very much.
However, it's one of those things where we know we need it, we know we need to use it, and we have no replacement.
Oh,
I can't get it.
Totally not true. We just don't think we have a replacement.
We don't think we do. That
Right.
is correct.
Toilet paper didn't get invented until I think the mid 1800s or late
That sounds
1800s.
about right.
Yeah, I mean, it was still around in outhouses, and it replaced things like newspaper, leaves.
Yep.
Farmer's Almanac pages.
Mm-hmm.
I actually read that in Farmer's Almanac.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was pretty funny. And other countries, actually, the United States uses more toilet paper per capita than any other country on the face of this
I
earth.
would totally believe that. But then again, we look at the country as a whole, largest economy, most prosperous country as a whole.
And
Absolutely.
most wasteful. We're very
Yeah.
wasteful in this country.
Absolutely.
I'm going to just put it out there, folks. So, we see a lot of, I got this particular flyer from
Okay.
my local grocery store. That's actually a regional store, I think out of Colorado, called Natural Grocers. And it's use this, not that. So they list laundry detergents, weed killer, which by the way, I had to go find an organic weed killer the other day. And there is such thing. Bags, so grocery bags, produce bags, dasher bags, and even toothbrushes. I have a toothbrush made out of bamboo. So
Oh, really?
there's all kinds of alternatives for our single-use products. And this is where we tend to be the most wasteful, right?
Yeah.
The things that we use once, throw away. Well, a lot of us don't think of toilet paper in that category.
No, it's just one of those things that's everyday use and
Right.
off you go.
So I quit using paper napkins unless I get them from a restaurant. We use all cloth, and I have a ton of them that we just throw in the wash. We use paper towels only for really nasty messes on the floor that I don't want to totally, I don't want to put them in the wash and clean them out if they're nasty.
Right.
And that's very rare. I go through a roll of paper towels maybe every 2 months. So, and we buy recycled.
Okay.
So I feel pretty good about those two. But I was not ready to move to a bidet or to rewashable cloths, which are options, by the way, for toilet paper, for in lieu of toilet paper. Pardon the pun. I didn't even plan that one.
Yeah, sometimes it just happens.
Back to the Lou humor.
Back to the toilet
Those
talk.
days, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we had this one other time, so.
I know, right? But
Well, where's Angie when she can join us?
This whole conversation of toilet paper gets really, really interesting when you start thinking of the fact that we are literally flushing forests down the toilet so that we can wipe our bums with something a little softer.
Well, and this is an interesting point because you just brought this up during our pre-production planning, and I didn't even realize this. So I want to hear your thoughts on this so our listeners can be better educated as to what actually goes into toilet paper. Because I was like you. I thought it was a certain type of wood, but take it away on this one because this is pretty interesting.
So how this kind of all came about, I have used recycled toilet paper for several years now because I personally feel very strongly that anytime I can use a recycled material rather than a virgin material, it is a good thing. It takes far less energy, far less water, far less chemicals to make it from recycled product.
Well, plus you're expanding the lifespan of the material.
Right. So paper is made from wood fiber, wood pulp. We use the same wood pulp to make all different kinds of paper, or we use a kind of wood pulp, different kinds of wood for different sources of paper. So like writing paper may or may not be the exact same that we make paper towels or toilet paper out of. I don't exactly know.
But it's same general idea.
Same general idea. So, you add water, you mush it up and you pat it into then sheets of whatever kind of paper you need and you let it dry, essentially. You cut it into the sizes you need. I mean, a lot of our, I remember making homemade paper with the Girl Scouts with my daughter when she was a Girl Scout. And it was a lot of fun, you could make it from old newspaper. And so this is basically, a very simplified process about how we make toilet paper. So I knew that it was from wood. I didn't know that. And I'd always assumed, be so careful with that word, folks, always assumed that they just used the bits and pieces, the leftovers from making lumber or material for wood siding or wood trim in a house or tables or furniture. Just assumed that all the bits and pieces were what we use to make paper.
Yeah, because think about it. When you're dealing with a wood mill, there's just scrap everywhere. By the time they've, chopped down into 2x4s or, made it into plywood, whatever. There's just scraps everywhere. So where's it go? You would think for something like this, right? And grind it up and off you go.
And it does contribute to being used in paper. I mean, it does. But what shocked me was reading this report. So this is the NRDC put out a report back in 2019, I believe, called The Issue with Tissue. And we'll link to it in the show notes. And they've updated it just recently. But what they talk about is the whole process of making paper and that 44% of the wood pulp used to make toilet paper comes from virgin growth forest. And this is in Canada. And they are literally clear cutting forest, habitat, native lands for indigenous peoples. They're clear cutting parts of this to make toilet paper. So first of all, I'm like, if you're clear cutting it, for goodness sakes, let's be using it for a really long lasting purpose. But clear cutting is not a great idea anyway. So a lot of the people involved with forestry and using the end products are saying, well, but we plant a tree every time we cut one down. But how long does it take that tree to reach forest size?
Yeah, there's a big difference there. If you're talking an old growth tree versus a tree you plant, trees you plant are for tree farms.
And that's what they're replanting in a lot of these cases is monocultures instead of the diverse interactions of all the different types of plants and animals and microbiomes and everything else that are in a forest. So we're losing forest, even though they're replanting. I said that with air quotes, folks, replanting trees. So
but it's a difference between planting a tree and ripping out a forest.
Right.
There's a habitat that goes with that. There's a interaction with all the parts and pieces of that habitat that we can't just recreate. Do you remember a few years ago, they did this was before you moved, they did the one seminar on regrowing the prairies. And they talked about the habitat that goes with the prairies. So every time we, rip out part of the native prairie, we lose some of that interaction. And every time we replant a prairie or try and regrow one, yeah, it's great. It's a start. Let's see what happens in 1,000 years.
Right. And this is the same basis for regenerative agriculture, which we can do a whole nother podcast, probably series about that. But this whole idea that nature, everything in nature works in systems.
Yes.
Including forests. So when we rip out forests for our convenience, people's convenience, that's a big long-term payoff and pay down, because I don't know how you ever pay that back. And so these mills are up here in Canada just churning away using freshly logged product. Now they are still making other products, lumber, et cetera.
Right.
But a lot of this is going to toilet paper. And you couple that with the fact that we've got so much paper that we're not recycling. So this report goes through, for you mighty readers out there, if you read through it, it goes through the exact amount of offsetting gases and energy and water and all of the different resources that we use to make paper, how much we can offset those by using a higher component or a complete component of recycled paper to make toilet paper. So I'm going to make some noise here. So pardon me. I'm unwrapping my toilet paper, which, by the way, I buy toilet paper that's wrapped in paper, not
It's
plastic.
recycled, though.
Yes.
It's not plastic.
It's not plastic, so I can toss it in the recycle. Okay, so here's my roll of toilet paper for those of you guys that are watching on video. For those of you guys that are listening, it's pretty standard looking roll of toilet paper.
Looks like just a normal roll of toilet paper like I've ever seen.
Now, it is pretty squishy, so it's not the thickest toilet paper. I will be very honest about that. But it works. It's comfortable. It's not scratchy like industrial toilet paper. I think that's what a lot of people think. And actually, a lot of industrial and commercial toilet paper is recycled. Matter of fact, we never went to a grocery store to buy toilet paper during the entire pandemic or now. We buy ours through an office supply store or online. There's 2 or 3 brands that I really like. And actually, in this paper that the NRDC put out, they rank and grade all of the toilet paper brands. And the one they like the best is a recycled paper by a company called Who Gives a Crap.
Oh, wow.
You got to love the name.
Brilliant
And
marketing.
they also make a bamboo paper, which is a little bit, A, it's new, and B, there's some questions because bamboo forests are not yet FSC certified. So what's FSC? This is Forest Stewardship
Council
certification.
I thought it was the Forest Stewardship Council.
It might be, but it is a certification for forestry and sustainable management of forestry. And it is the standard that really everybody that is watching all this and nurturing all this really wants to follow. It's the strongest standard out there. There are some other forest management standards, but this is the one. And what's interesting, so I picked up on a video the other day, I picked up this box of tissue that just happened to be sitting on my desk. And I looked on the bottom and I was like, it has the FSC logo on it.
Most things do. Most things that do, because a lot of things that we don't even realize are recycled.
Well, this is FSC has nothing to do with recycled. It's just
It's the forest management.
Correct. But here's the caveat. This particular logo says mix paper from responsible source. So it has a percentage FSC managed forest in it, but the rest we don't know. No chain of custody.
Is it part of it that they know because maybe that's what they're using the full trees from? And the parts, if they're using bits and pieces and all this other stuff, they really don't know because it's just scrap.
They don't tell us. And this is the lack of transparency.
Right.
And the other issue here is, I'm going to backtrack to kind of the more consumer view of this. We know what we know and we like what we like. And once we like it, we don't want to change our minds. I mean, think about it. When you go in the grocery store, you have your path, you have your map lined out. You go to all the products that you know you buy and you know you like, and you're done. So you've probably been buying the same toilet paper brand for 10 years, maybe longer.
No, I have not.
Well, you're unusual.
Yes, I am.
I can do that anyway. But a lot of us do. And when I was still going in grocery stores, which I haven't in over a year, I would take about a day every quarter and go into the grocery store and spend about 2 hours. And I would read labels on things. And I would find new product to try. I still try a lot of new products, you know that. But here's why this whole thing with toilet paper becomes such an interesting conversation. And I've had this conversation with some of my family members because several of my family members are very committed to a certain brand of toilet paper.
Right.
And so toilet paper made from virgin wood has longer fibers. So wood pulp is made up of the fibers of wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, every time you recycle paper or wood, the fibers become shorter. So it's actually a very good use for end of life paper.
Right.
Because we flush it down the toilets.
It's never coming back.
It goes to the sewage plant. And oftentimes the sewage plants will make fertilizer from the sludge, and then they clean the water up and repurpose it. Natural cycle of water and sewage. So, but if you're taking long wood fibers that have a lot of life left in them, quote unquote, and flushing them down the toilets, they're not being used to their full capacity.
Right. You're taking basically a long growth tree that's been around for probably minimum 80, 90 years.
Yep. A lifetime.
To chop it down. So it's a lifetime tree, and you're converting it into a single use product.
So what I'm reading is that the bamboo made fibers or pulp that makes the paper is much more comparable to feeling like the long fibers from wood.
Mm-hmm.
The stipulation is that it is much more comfortable for people that really care about that. So I'm going to test it out. I have some on order. I'm hoping to put in a little addendum onto the podcast by the time this publishes, if I get it in time. I should have ordered it earlier, but I didn't. And I will let y'all know what I think. And I'm actually going to see some of my family members here in a few weeks. And I'm actually going to give some of them this toilet paper. And I want them to try it out. I want their honest assessment. And because if we're going to shift the way we in our toilets, we've got to help each other learn about different alternatives. And we've got to vote with our pocketbooks. I don't think we fully comprehend the power that we have as consumers and buyers of products. And by letting companies know that our big paper-oriented companies that this is not okay, we know there's other ways to do it. Mm-hmm. It's been proven. There's a lot of other companies doing it in different ways. But our big paper-oriented companies have not yet made that commitment and that switch.
Well, they don't see things like that. They see things as paper, and they're selling rolls of whatever. I got a question, though. So we talk about this as a potential to maybe change the use of trees. So if bamboo is truly an additional resource to use, is there any kind of offsets we have to look at?
I am not entirely clear on that one. But one of the things I noted in the report is they said you want to make sure that the bamboo is responsibly sourced, because you don't want people clear cutting land to grow bamboo forests to meet bamboo production.
Right, but that becomes part of the issue because of where bamboo comes from.
Correct.
Most bamboo comes from China, and we all know reporting in China is a lot different than reporting in the United States.
Well, but there are also, so what's happened? So let me give you the history. And this is not meant to be a commercial for Who Gives a Crap, because there's other companies doing this. This is just the most recent one I read because I was looking at their product.
But this is sharing information, and that's what we need to do.
So Who Gives a Crap, if y'all hear this, I would love to talk with y'all more. They're actually a company out of Australia. So they're already on that side of the world.
Right.
They container ship large amounts of product to the US and to Europe, where they have other arms of their company. So they have built as sustainable of a transportation path as they can, given current technology and methods, et cetera. So I applaud them for at least being transparent about what they're doing. So I know they're not shipping stuff to me on an airplane, because I don't want to buy stuff that way. The other thing I did when I researched where their bamboo comes from, so they do put this up on their website. They have said they are planning to get FSC certification on their bamboo as soon as it, I'm not sure if it's not available yet or they just haven't gotten it yet.
But I don't know if it's available in China.
Pardon?
I don't know if it's available in China.
It talks about this in the NRDC paper. the updated one in 2021, and I just don't remember exactly what they said, but there is an FSC certification that they have talked about with this company.
Okay.
But here was what was so interesting about what they did note on their website is that they buy bamboo from farmers that use it on the edge of their fields.
Okay.
And that was extremely specific. I would thought, wow.
Well, when they use it on the edge of the fields that way, it becomes a fence. It's the fence line for the property. That's
and
how
it's
they
additional income for these small farmers.
Yeah.
To build up, augment what they're getting from their farms. So I at least applauded them for thinking outside the box and doing something a little bit different. They've been at it. I think they came into being in 2013. So they're not a brand new company. So they've had some time to develop this. But this is going to be very interesting to watch because this particular company is getting a lot of press right now. And hopefully that's a good model for a lot of other companies to look at and say, hey, can we do some of this? Or can we translate it into a different set of materials? Hemp's being looked at as a material for toilet paper, and waste wheat straw is being looked at as a way to make toilet paper.
I think this conversation we're just having is very important because we have to understand that every change of materials and all that has an overall impact that we have to factor in, and nobody wants to really have that conversation, whether it's, how electricity is generated or, what fuel source we use. But
it's coming.
You have to look at, okay, what is the impact of cutting down the old forest and transporting it, from Canada to here versus what's the impact of, trying to source bamboo and shipping it on a container from, the Far East to the United States. We have to look at all of that and say it's not just one little part of the equation. It's a large equation, and there's a lot of
yes.
But a lot of people aren't even familiar about that because nobody's telling them that. Nobody wants to be transparent about that.
Correct. And this is the part, people, if there is one thing that you can do, it's just learn a little bit more and talk to people about this, because there's so many people that we know what we know, and we don't realize that there's a lot more to know and that it can impact a lot of people. And I think, so why is this whole thing of tearing down forests such a big deal? Let's backtrack. So not only is it tearing down a habitat for animals and birds and insects and caribou. Apparently there's a specific type of caribou that lives in the boreal forest, but we also have affected the indigenous people that live there and that depend on the forest for their livelihood. I don't know that they're getting a say in any of this, but here's the other piece. Forests are a huge part to balancing the climate in our natural world. And so we as people kind, not only are adding a lot of stuff just from our activities, but we're also taking away the natural systems this planet put in place for us. So we're getting it on both sides. And that's, with a lot of us really watching what's happening with all the change in climate and the ramping up. And this is a whole nother series that you and I have been working on for climate change, is you think about, if you just think about it from a natural, logical perspective, if you start messing with Mother Nature, things are going to happen. And that is a big part of this. And I didn't realize how huge this forest is in Canada. It's very, very large.
All you have to do is look at a topographical map and you understand that Canada is predominantly forest.
Yes.
You have a good chunk of like the western states that are more agricultural. They're like, South Dakota, Minnesota, things like that. But there's just a lot of forestry in Canada. And, to go to your point, the whole globe is a massive system that's made up of smaller little ecosystems. And the minute you start knocking one of them out of balance, well, the system looks to correct, but it takes time. And we might not like the result of how it self-corrects. That's just how it works. It's always going to look to balance. What a lot of people don't realize is these large forests are massive carbon dioxide storage facilities.
And it's not just the trees.
No, it's everything that's green.
It's the soil. It's everything. Yeah.
Yes. It all eats it up. It soaks it up. It's just like the oceans being a massive carbon sink.
Yep.
Forests are they call it, that is the official term in environmental management. It's a carbon sink. Think of your kitchen sink and how water acts. That's how carbon acts in these.
Yeah.
It just
Good
disappears. It really does. And because of that, when we lose these forests, just like we lose these prairies, you are losing interactions of insects in the land. You are losing potential species of plant life that is not being fertilized anymore because that habitat where the interaction takes place is gone. So we don't know what we're losing because there's just so much that hasn't even really been discovered yet. You know, for us to think that we don't live in a world where discovery happens anymore, plant strains, animal strains, organisms, that's fallacy. We are still discovering things daily, but we don't know because we are not spending 24/7 watching and observing these interactions. Because, well, we only have so much time and, you know, so little resources to spend on discovery. So it's not a big deal anymore. But it's unfortunate because once we lose these interactions, it will take a millennia to bring them back.
I think our modern lifestyles, we live so far from the processes that really give us life and support us. And
well, we live in a disposable world.
Well, not only that, but we live in a highly segmented world. Mm-hmm. So that, you know, how many kids have ever gone to a farm to see how their food is grown or realize that an animal is actually the source of that fried chicken they're eating? And I remember my grandmother telling me about going out to the chicken yard and butchering a chicken, killing the chicken, pulling the feathers off and butchering it to have chicken for dinner that night. And I've never seen it. I've never done it. I am like, wow, I didn't think about that. And now, you know, my kids and my grandchildren to be are even further away from that. So this is one of the reasons I think spending time outdoors is so important and touching nature, because we need to remember that it is where, you know, it's where everything started for us, for what supports us. And at any rate, that's a long way down the rabbit hole from toilet paper.
Yes.
But it all matters. This is one thing I've really started, you know, using in a lot of my conversations with people is your individual health and that of your family, your friends is so highly dependent on the health of the world and vice versa. And that interaction, that coupling, we've forgotten that. And it's so important. And so all of this talk about, you know, what we're doing, human systems and using up our natural resources and leaving a toxic mess and all of that, it's not just out there. It affects us directly eventually. And that's a concept that's really just kind of been lost. So it can start at home with toilet paper.
Start it one roll at a time.
One roll at a time. And, you know, people ask me when I go to speak with folks, I get asked, you know, what are the things you do in your own home? And I've top 3, and toilet paper is one of those top 3. There you have it. I can just hear. It also makes a great costume. But seriously,
this crown for the throne.
There you go. A crown for the. We've been watching a lot of The Crown lately. Such a small swap in your buying habits can have such a big impact on our world and our people in this world.
Well, and you think about it, it's something that everybody buys.
We do.
Everybody buys
in this country, we do. Although bidets have caught on quite, they've become quite popular during the pandemic, I understand. So if you're ready to try a bidet, you can go that route too.
I don't have room for one.
Actually, they have one in a toilet seat. So you just put it on top of you take off your existing toilet seat and put the new one on. And it has a bidet in the toilet seat.
Gotcha.
Kinds of clever inventions out there, folks. But check out the link in page 15 of the report is the report card on all the different toilet papers. So go check yours out, see how it's graded, see what some of your other options are to buy. Right now, there's one option on the Everyday Green Home shop. I'm hoping to get another option up there very soon. And I'm also posting a link if you want to try out the same toilet paper I'm trying that's made of bamboo. I put a link in the show notes for that too. And let me know what you think. I really could use some feedback here.
Feedback on the show or the toilet paper?
Both. Both. So as you sit on your throne today, Tony, you'll have something new to think about.
Now, there you go. I always have something new to think about, though. Life is never boring.
There you go. Well, folks, that's the wrap on toilet paper. We'll see you next time. That wraps this episode of the Everyday Green Home Podcast. Get the show notes with all the resources mentioned in this episode. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Ready to get started? Get more information, how-tos, and resources in my private Facebook group, Love Your Everyday Green Home. See you there. And remember that living a little better and a little greener is easier than you think.